Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Light of the World Christian Church here in Topeka, Kansas. Having a great time, great crowds. We've been here Sunday through Wednesday. If you can, come to the service tonight. And this weekend, if you can, we'll be in Alma, Arkansas, right outside of Fort Smith. We'll be there Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We'll be getting into the coming of the Lord. So blessed to see people so hungry for Jesus coming back. What we're doing every week is looking at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war. We're so close to Jesus coming back that we have, you could call markers or signs or actually precise things that are happening so close to his return. So each week we get into what happened around Israel, and specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war. We're so close to Jesus coming back. It's very exciting. Remember, the Lord rebuked the crowd about not knowing the season they were in. He said, hey, you can tell what the weather's going to be, but you don't know your hour of your visitation. So he rebuked the Pharisees over and over and over again, but the crowd only one time. That was about the timing. So we look at these things so that we accelerate. Remember, looking at the rapture of the church, the rapture's signless, but the second coming has tons of signs. So we look at this so that we accelerate. You see the finish line, you run faster, not shorter, not slower. We see Jesus about to come back, so we're more engaged and we do the will of God. So let's pick up what's happened around Israel this last week. Probably the biggest things are, you had Israel take out another convoy of Iranian missiles coming from Iran into Syria. It got no fanfare whatsoever, but several Israeli planes took out that convoy. You had some Iranian militia fire at our bases in Iraq again, just like they did a couple weeks ago. But there were no casualties, but they keep firing at them as well. It did come out that Iran had shot down that Ukrainian airplane. So it's getting exposed literally what the thought pattern is behind them, because they've been enabling Iran to bring weaponry down into Iraq, and there's basically what they call a corridor that Israel's been having to stop that supply of weaponry. You had Mahmoud Abbas, remember the head of the Palestinians this week, he got mad because the EU finally said you're not going to get any funding if you're going to support terrorism. So it's cool to see these groups getting called on the carpet for what they really are, and that's pretty amazing. Another thing that happened this week, this one's really cool. You had so much rain in Israel that at the temple, you had the ritual baths get full of water for the first time in 2,000 years. They've not been able to be used for 2,000 years, and right now you have that. Just like you have fish in the Dead Sea, Ezekiel prophesied about. You have foxes showing up on the Temple Mount. You got all this. You got predatory birds showing up. So now you have the ritual baths even being full of water right around the temple. Very cool to see that happening. So many things keep happening. You had Russia be very provocative. They almost ran into one of our destroyers. That was all over the news. You got so much happening. You got the UK's come out with a new Rolls-Royce is building a new engine for their jets that's going to be used for hypersonic missiles, just like Russia talked about their new hypersonic weapons. So all these things are pointing to the coming of the Lord. You had the Pope doing some weird stuff this last week. You've had the Pope doing stuff almost 5 or 6 weeks in a row with Islam and with Buddhism. And this last week it was even more set up to try to unite all the religions together. So you're watching the push and the press for a false prophet mentality to come on the scene after the rapture of the church. So many things keep happening around the state of Israel. It looks like Benjamin Netanyahu is going to have immunity from anything while they're getting things ready in the country. So you had Turkey, I talked about last week, bring troops down into Libya. Now you have Egypt taking tanks over into Libya. So you got the setup of the nations for the Ezekiel 38 war. All the players are coming on the field, getting in position, because Jesus is just about to come back. You had natural activity this week. You had a lot of volcanoes, a lot of earthquakes. All kinds of things are happening because that's exactly what the Bible said you'd see right before the coming of the Lord. So what do we do as a test to be able to see these things for sure? You have obviously Israel having to protect itself like never before, because the Bible talks about them being attacked right here before the coming of the Lord. But technically, let's look at the scripture. Number 1, Israel made a nation. Number 2, Jerusalem won back. So Jesus said the generation that sees those 2 events will not pass away till all is fulfilled. So how blessed are we to see that? But then we have more. You have the Hebrew language restored in our lifetime. You have the Ethiopian Jews brought back in our lifetime. You have the fertility of the land of Israel. You have the revival of the Roman Empire. You have the Temple Mount Institute. You got the predatory birds that showed up. You got the fish that showed up in the Dead Sea, like I talked about Ezekiel. You had foxes show up on the Temple Mount. That's Lamentations. So you have all these tangible physical things that point to the coming of the Lord. Many more. Men will be lovers themselves. We have selfie sticks. You can't get any more freaked out than seeing people taking pictures of themselves over and over and over again. But really, the amazing thing is after that, you've got signals. So you have all of these tangible signs, and now you have signals, the heavens. You have planets signaling for us how close we are to the coming of the Lord. You had blood red moons a few years ago. What? On Passover and Tabernacles. Pretty remarkable to have 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles. What's the big deal about that? NASA called it a tetrad. When's the last time you had 4 blood red moons in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation. 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. That's very radical to have that in our lifetime. The heavens were signaling, I died for you, I'm coming back. I died for you, I'm coming back. After that, you had the Bethlehem star this last year, the first time in 2,000 years. At the birth of Jesus, the constellation was Virgo. This last year, you had Jupiter, Regulus, Venus come together. The constellation was Leo. He's the lion of the tribe of Judah. Radical to have the heavens telling us how close we are to the coming of the Lord. After that, you had Mercury do a flyby of the sun, went down directly over the Temple Mount at sunset. Orion changed his instrument to hammer. And the planets formed a sickle, the moon formed a sickle. You have hammer and sickle on the same day. What is that? That's Russia's symbol. You're watching the setup for what's going to happen right after the rapture of the church. Now, I believe we do have some more time. I talked about that last week. I don't think we have very, very much time. So what do we do as a Christian? What do we do to help our local church? Help your local pastor. Be engaged. Don't miss services. Be involved. Do whatever you can to get the message out because Jesus is just about to come back. We're so privileged to have all of these things the Bible said you'd see just before the appearance of the King. Man, Jesus, God, is about to come back to the planet. Let's do the will of God. Let's walk with God. Let's speak for God and do His bidding right before He comes. Man, have a blessed, awesome week. We'll see you next Wednesday. God bless you.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the EDU at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.